Hi guys, I'm here today to do part 2 of my October book haul. I'm going to link part 1 up here, in which I talk about all the children's books I recently acquired. This part of the haul is everything else. So I've got 3 books I want to talk about first, because these books aren't actually out yet and they're not out for quite a while. I've been sent all these unrequested and decided to keep them because they all sound great, but they're not out for a while, so I'm just going to mention them briefly so that you can add them to your pre-order list if you so wish. So this one isn't out till April. Crazy times. This is The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sarah Collins. I really like the sound of this one. So this is set in the 1800s, I believe, and it follows a young girl called Franny Langton who is accused of murdering someone she works for. What sounds different about this one is that Franny Langton was actually a slave on a plantation in Jamaica, and she was brought over to work in a house in England, a very, very grand house. And the author decided to write this book because she loved reading gothic historical fiction growing up, but never saw someone she recognised in those stories, and really wanted to sort of give herself a voice in that narrative. So I think this one's going to be a really interesting play on what we're used to seeing in gothic historical fiction set in England, and it just sounds really, really good. So there's that one. And this one is set in Iceland in 1686, and this is The Glass Woman by Caroline Lee. This one sounds like it might be quite spooky and a little bit scary. So it follows a lady called Rosa who is newly betrothed, and the man had a previous wife who has died under suspicious circumstances, and the villagers start to be concerned that something is coming for them, and Rosa fears that she may be next. So I'm a little bit wary because this is written by an author from England who lives in England and not in Iceland. I did really enjoy Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, and she's not from Iceland, which is I think where the book was also set, so we shall see. So this one comes out in February, not sure I said that. Now this one comes out in January, and I may read this one before January because I'm very excited about it. This is Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. It actually has a picture in here of what the final cover will look like, which is very, very pretty, so I'm very excited to pick this one up if I enjoy it in the final hardback copy. So this is set around the Darwinian age, and it just sounds really gothic and atmospheric. It says it starts on a dark midwinter's night in an ancient inn on the Thames. All those things are just ticking so many boxes. So a man bursts through the door with a dead child in his arms, and the story really goes from there. It says replete with folklore, suspense and romance, as well as with the urgent scientific curiosity of the Darwinian age. Once Upon a River is as richly atmospheric as Setterfield's bestseller, The 13th Tale, which I haven't read, crazily. It sounds like the sort of book I could completely adore, so I'm going to try and read that and this. Then the last book I was sent this month is Cree by Una. Now, I heard about this author's previous book. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Does it say? It doesn't say. I'll put it along here. I can't remember, but this one sounds pretty good. So it says, in Una's new graphic novel, Jolene finds friendship and creativity with a Cree group. Following her on her journey through the rural and urban landscape of County Durham in this gentle, colourful story that plays with symmetry and the sequential in Una's distinctive and innovative style. Can't get the words out. So yeah, it looks really nice. The artwork looks really great. That's particularly beautiful. And yeah, I'm not quite sure what to expect, but I've heard great things about the author as an illustrator and a writer, so thought I'd give this one a go. So as I said, the rest I picked up this month. So I had this next one on pre-order, unsurprisingly, and that is Melmoth by Sarah Perry. I'm not going to say much. I've already read this, and I think lots of you probably know what it's about, but I adored the Essex Serpent, and so I was always going to have this on pre-order. This is a little bit of a spooky book. It's set in the modern day across several different countries, and I'll talk more about it in my October wrap-up. I also picked up Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell because I thought I would try and read it for Victober. It was the only Victorian book I was going to try and read for the whole month. As you can see, I started it. I got to page 34, so I did really well. Yeah, I actually enjoyed the first 34 pages, but just ended up not reading much, and then, yeah, didn't get any further. So nothing to do with not enjoying this book, simply that I wasn't reading a ton. So this is about Mary Barton. She is the daughter of a factory worker, and at the start of the novel there's a change in circumstance with her family, and her father are sort of left to cope with that. And this then follows her as she sort of starts to have an interest in a mill owner's son who's a lot wealthier than she is, but also she starts to have a romantic relationship with a friend of her father's son who she grew up with, who's of the same sort of social standing as she is. And then a violent act occurs between the two of them, and it's about how she deals with that. I think this was based on a true story. So yeah, quite intrigued by this one, and I will read it at some point soonish. So I also have this one on audiobook because I joined Scribd after I saw Jean talk about it, and it was on there, so I may audiobook it, I'm not sure. Then the last one I picked up online is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. So I read Normal People earlier this month and just completely adored it. Best book I've read so far this year. I feel like it's been a long time since I felt that way about a book. I loved it, and I didn't expect to. When this book came out, I thought it sounded awful. For me as a reader, when people said it's really millennial and it's quite, the writing style's quite stripped back and it's not very descriptive, I was like, no, no and no. But then Normal People was nominated for the Man Booker, and I looked into it and preferred the sound of it and thought, I'll give it a go, expecting to, you know, not think much of it, but thinking perhaps she deserved more of a chance than I'd previously given her, and I loved it. So I'm not prepared to love this as much, because I know there's loads of people who really love Normal People who didn't love this one. But I feel like it would be silly of me not to go back and read her first book. It's just crazy as well. I think she's like a year younger than me. Insane. But anyway, so I have Conversations with Friends, finally catching up with that bandwagon. Then after buying loads of children's books in Waterstones, I had some money on my Waterstones card to use, and so I decided to use it towards this book. I don't know how you say that first word. Tearza, and The Prince of Crows by Deborah K. Davies. Now, I do not like this cover. I feel like it's a really bold cover choice, so hats off to whoever designed it, and I just think it's a preference thing. It's not for me, but it's certainly striking, and I've been going in Waterstones recently, and every time I go in there it's a book I nearly pick up and then don't, because I'm a little bit unsure when I have a flick through. But I feel like if I've been drawn to it the last 5 times I've gone in there, I should just pick it up. So I read her previous book, which is Reasons She Goes to the Woods, and I really enjoyed it. It's a much shorter book, and it's written in vignettes from this young girl's perspective, as she's in her house and in her garden, and she has a weird relationship with her family, and it's very beautiful. It's very oddly written, it's very poetic and a little bit twisted. So she's one of those authors where I don't know how she'd handle a longer, more plot-focused novel, because her strength is in description. So hence why I was a little bit, you know, wary about this one. But I just really like the sound of it. So this is set in a remote valley in Wales in 1974, and it follows a 16-year-old girl who's brought up in a staunchly religious family. But then she meets this young boy, and it follows what happens from there, and it says, ultimately teaching her that freedom springs from within. It says, drawing on Welsh mythology and with an almost fable-esque quality, this novel is an intensely immersive, layered and powerful novel about life choices and the healing power of love. I read the first couple of pages, and I don't think this is going to be an easy, quick read by any means, but like I said, I picked it up too many times, so I bought it, and I'm going to give it a go soonish, I hope. I say this about every book I buy, so probably not. But there's that one. And then these last 3 I picked up in the Book Hive, which is an independent bookshop in Norwich, and they have a little children's room which is beautiful, particularly for picture books. It's really phenomenal. And then their downstairs is predominantly given over to non-fiction, which I think is very smart, because people tend to go to fiction, and if non-fiction's upstairs, never go upstairs, but it forces you to look at the non-fiction. So yeah, and I always think they have a really great non-fiction selection, probably the best non-fiction selection of any bookshop I've ever gone in. And so I was just wandering around the non-fiction tables because I didn't really feel any need to go to fiction, because I have so many. And I saw this book, this is Bitch Doctrine, Essays for Dissenting Adults by Laurie Penny. So I read her essay collection, which came out a couple of years ago, called Unspeakable Things. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I had a couple of issues with it. I felt sometimes she got close to building her point and then simplified things, and the essay wasn't taken to its full potential, but I still enjoyed it. And I feel like perhaps with having a couple more years, her essays could be even stronger. So it says, from the shock of Donald Trump's election and the victories of the far right to online harassment and the transgender rights movement, these darkly humorous articles provoke challenging conversations about the definitive social issues of today. And I had a little look at the start to see how I feel about it, and it says, this book is a dispatch from Generation Snowflake. It is a book that is unashamed of what some people call political correctness, although I prefer to think of it as manners. So yeah, I'm hopeful that this could be a really smart but also slightly witty book, so I thought I'd give her another shot. And I did keep on seeing all the things, because I did enjoy it. It just wasn't perfect, so there's that one. And then I also picked up Always Another Country by, I should have looked this up, Sisonke Misamang? I will check before I review this book, because that was embarrassing. So I don't tend to like books that have photographic covers, but that is a photographic cover well done. It's a stunning photograph paired with the topography and the blue background, just thought was beautiful. So I picked it up because of that. And then when I read the back, I just really basically wanted to read this book. So it says that the author was born in exile to a South African guerrilla father and a working mother. She moves from Zambia to Kenya to Canada and beyond. And then when she's older, she moves back to South Africa. And this book says that it basically follows her growing up in all these different countries and her disillusionment with each of these countries in turn. And I guess this is going to be an examination of the place you call home, and her political awakening throughout these countries. So I read that, loved the cover, loved the back, and then I had a little look at the inside and read a few pages, and it's beautifully written, a really beautiful tone. And I don't know much about the history of some of the countries mentioned on the back, and so I'm hoping that through reading it in memoir form, it will give me maybe a simple understanding that I can then take to reading you know, a non-fiction book focused on the political history of that country. But hopefully this will give me sort of a way in. So yeah, this one sounds amazing. So hopefully I'll try and read this during non-fiction November, as with the previous book. Then I paid for both of those, and to be honest, I picked them both up and I was putting them both down, and then Lauren said to me, oh, you're not going to get those, you keep picking them up and putting them down. And I said, oh no, I've got too many books. I've got about 50 or 60 unread non-fiction books, you know, I have to draw the line somewhere. And the bookseller in there said, do you know what, I've just accepted that the line's crossed, and I'm never going to get my, you know, shelf down, and I just want those books, so I just buy them. He said obviously it helps that I work here. And he was just so lovely, he was so chatty, and when he heard us talking about books, he was asking and saying, oh, why did you enjoy it, you know, do you recommend it? And it was just a lovely experience, and I just thought, you know what, like, even I really want these books, but I felt like I could give myself an excuse by saying I'm supporting my local independent bookshop, you know, particularly after the guy behind the till was just so helpful. So I picked them both up, and then I just put them in my bag, and then Eleanor picked up this book, and I completely broke my rule because I'd already bought enough fiction throughout the month, but it just looked and sounded perfect. So Eleanor picked this up and said, oh, I think you might like the sound of this, Mercedes. And I saw the cover as she was holding it up, and I was like, oh, like, it's so beautiful. And then she read this bit, a highly original coming-of-age debut novel, shouts to me, with brilliant characterisation, sharp humour and a vivid sense of place. And I was like, coming of age and that cover. And then I had another look, and it says, this book is the sentimental education of an intelligent but wary girl who's in love with astronomy and animals but doesn't know much about terrestrial life in between. And I just thought, astronomy, animals, coming of age, that cover, I have to buy this book. So this is Teeth Marks on My Tongue by Eileen Battersby. It's by Head of Zeus, it's published by, who I don't know much about, so I'm going to look into them a bit more. It's published this year, and I think the bookseller said that this author is an Irish author, and this has been getting like an underground following, and he said there's quite a lot about horses in it from what he's heard. So yeah, I picked this one up as well, and I just think it sounds amazing. So I've just created a Patreon account because I've seen that a few other people have them on their channel, and I think they're a really great way to be able to pick up better equipment to do the channel with, like an actual microphone and better lighting and all these other things. So I thought I'd start a Patreon because, you know, I find these sort of things really uncomfortable, right? Like, I've had my channel for, I don't even know, 5-6 years, and I have no issue with other people having Patreons. I think they're a great idea and I fully support them, but for some reason I find it really uncomfortable doing it myself, which, it's one of those things, I'm like this with everything in life. I'll be like, I don't think there's any problem with that, but I wouldn't dare do it, which is a really silly way to live your life. And so actually, I would happily support people to make their YouTube videos because I love watching them. And so I feel like if other people feel the same, why am I so ashamed of it? So anyway, I'm going to have this issue for a while, but I've decided to start a Patreon so that I can, you know, do better quality videos and things like that. And one of the tiers I've created, which I'm actually quite excited about, is that once a month I'm going to put up a poll and it's going to have 3 books on it. And you get to choose which of the 3 books I'm going to read, and I'm going to vlog myself reading that book, and then put it all together as one video that will only be able to be seen if you are subscribed to that tier on Patreon. And the reason I decided to do that is because I really enjoyed a vlog I did recently in which I spoke quite a lot about a Sarah Hall book, and it was really interesting to vlog that one because I actually really loved the start and didn't love the end, and I thought that was an interesting thing to sort of to follow. I mean, even for me when I edited it back, it was interesting to see my love of it by the time I was reading and not loving it so much. So anyway, 2 of the books that are definitely going to be in that poll are these 2 that I just mentioned, because I want to try and you know, grab these books whilst they're new. So it's going to be these 2 and one other I'm going to go and choose now, and I will put them in the Patreon description stuff on the page so you can go and vote. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because I'm really excited. So these will be one of these, or another book which I haven't chosen yet, will be one of the books that I read and vlog about in the month of November. So I'll link all that information down below, as well as obviously all these books. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you've heard of them, if you've picked them up, or if you're interested in picking them up now. I think I've got a really great selection, and I'm really happy that a lot of them, or especially the last few, were books that I hadn't ever heard of. The 3 I picked up in the book hive I'd never heard of, and it was literally just books I picked up through browsing, which is something I so rarely do now. I think it's really hard when you're so immersed in the bookish community, as I am, to find books that you've never heard of. And so I think the book hive and bookshops like the book hive give you great opportunities for that. So I was really happy to pick those ones up. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!